Hello everyone, my name is Marc Lelarge and I'm learning to make a MOOC the hard way. I only have my laptop and this small microphone, so let's see how it goes. I will teach a deep learning course, the basics of deep learning. So today we start with lecture 1, where I will present the machine learning pipeline and a global overview of this course. Let's get started. The goal of this course is to try to understand how deep learning works. And to do this, we will use a deep learning framework which is called Pytorch. By the way, all the links in this presentation can be clicked like this, so that you end up on the website of Pytorch. Okay? Back to the presentation. We will also try to see the broad domains of application of deep learning. We will start with computer vision actually today. We'll then see application to recommender system, a little bit of natural language processing and unsupervised learning. This is largely a do-it-yourself course. This means you will need to make your hands dirty and code quite a bit and understand the code I will give you. The benefit of this is you will be able to use the neural network right away. Actually, this is what we will do today in this first lesson. It's completely fine if for this first lesson you do not understand exactly what's happening at each steps I will show you. And this is indeed exactly the purpose of this course, to come back to each of these steps in the next lesson in order to understand it deeply. Okay? Of course, all the material will be available on the website of the course. So let's see. What is deep learning? Let's start with a very simple supervised machine learning task, namely classification. Here we have images of, let's say, cats and dogs, and the task is try to classify these images. We are in a supervised setting, meaning that we have a bunch of images, and each image has a label which is either a cat or a dog. So what is an image for a computer? It's just an array of numbers giving for each pixel of the image the level of red, green, blue, for example. If you are using this representation of the image in order to do classification, it's very hard, because it's very hard to distinguish a cat from a dog on a pixel by pixel basis. So the first thing you need to do is what is called feature extraction, okay, with this blue box. So from an image represented by this array of numbers, you will build another way of representing the image, and you will try to capture the features that are relevant to your task. Namely here, the features that will distinguish a cat from a dog. So this is what is represented by this small picture. The features of the cat here and the feature of the dog here. Okay? So in most cases, when you are dealing with images, you rely on typical signal processing algorithm for this feature extraction. This is fixed and done by hand, by experts for the given task you want to achieve. Then the second part, in green here, is the classification itself. So now you feed this classifier with this new vector that you built from the original image, and the classifier will output a label. So for example, in this case, the prediction of the classifier is that this image is a cat. Clearly it's wrong. So we have to tell the classifier that the prediction is wrong, and we will update the parameter of the classifier in order for this classifier to make better prediction for the next image. So this is what is depicted with this red arrow. Of course, learning is not achieved with only one image. So you will need what is called a dataset, a bunch of images, some of dogs here, some of cats here. All these images are labeled. So each time I know that my image contains either a cat or a dog, then you pass all these images through your feature extraction algorithm. You obtain these feature vectors, one for each image. So you have a bunch of feature vectors. And now the classifier will learn how to classify these images based on their representation as feature vectors. So each time it's making a mistake, you try to upgrade a little bit the classifier by modifying a little bit the parameter in order to make a better prediction next time. So this is the learning phase in red here. So what is the difference between this typical supervised machine learning system and a deep learning system? You can depict it like that. In a deep learning system, you try to learn also the feature extraction. So this was previously done by hand by an expert from the field, typically using filter from signal processing. And now you try to learn also this feature extraction algorithm as well as the classifier. So now you have something which is end-to-end between the raw images at the beginning and the label on the right. Each time you are making a mistake, you modify the parameter of the classifier, but also the parameter of the feature extraction in order to get better and better feature extraction and better classifier. So this is what is depicted with these red arrows over there. So at a high level, this is the main difference between what people call deep learning and standard machine learning algorithm. So why is deep learning happening now? Well, first, you have to know that deep learning, the first deep learning algorithm were invented in the 50s. So we are building on at least 5 decades of research in machine learning. The second main ingredient is the existence of this hardware. So on the left you see a GPU, on the right you see a TPU. So GPU have been designed to deal with graphics, not with deep learning. But it turns out that from a high level perspective, they are very fast at doing matrix multiplication, which is the standard operation you need to do in deep learning. So using this GPU will, as you will see, get a lot of improvement in terms of time for your deep learning algorithm. TPUs are hardware designed specifically for deep learning algorithm. The other main ingredient is that we have now access to lots of data thanks to basically web scraping. So here is a picture of ImageNet, which is a very famous dataset in computer vision containing a lot of images, and all these images have been labeled by humans. The last point I want to say is that right now there are quite a few frameworks if you want to do deep learning. The two main frameworks these days are TensorFlow and Pytorch. So we will use Pytorch in this course, which is developed by Facebook. TensorFlow is developed by Google, but both frameworks are open source and you can use them freely, and you can reproduce experiments from papers thanks to these freely available tools. So GenSim and Spacey are also free software for natural language processing. Okay, so what is the deep learning pipeline? What are the names you need to remember? The first one is the dataset. Okay, so the dataset is just for our classification task, all the images you have access to with labels. Okay, in order to put your dataset in your algorithm, you will need to use what is called a data loader. So the data loader will take care of taking these raw images and will format them in order to make it to put them on the GPU so that you can use it with your deep learning model. So this is the second step, the deep learning model, which takes as input the raw images. It's fed by the data loader. It's doing feature extraction. So this is hidden in the network, this. Then you have a classifier, and this is where we'll spend a little bit of time to explain what kind of layer architecture you can use to build such a model. The last part is the loss and the optimization. So the output of the classifier is just a label for the so binary classification. It's either a cat or a dog. Now, each time your network is making an error, you will compute a loss, and this loss will increase. Okay. Now, the way we learn the parameter of the classifier on the feature extraction bricks are thanks to an optimizer whose role is to minimize the loss, which means that in a sense you try to minimize the number of errors you are making. We will see that it's not exactly the number of errors that you are minimizing, and we will see this in the coming lessons. When you are putting everything together, the dataset on the data loader, the model, the loss on the optimizer, with these red arrows, you obtain what we call the training loop. Okay? When you pass through the dataset, you compute the output, you see how many errors, you compute the loss, and from the loss, you optimize the parameter of the classifier and the feature extraction thanks to the optimizer. So what will be the overview of this course? Well, today, as I say, we have a very quick overview of the machine learning pipeline, and then we will do in reverse order if you want. So for the next course, we will see Pytorch tensors on what is called automatic differentiation. So for the next course, you should be able to understand the training loop, which is how you are able to update your parameters in order to optimize a loss automatically with Pytorch. And in Pytorch, the two main concepts used for this are tensor and autograd. Again, these are links where you are directed to the documentation of Pytorch, which will soon become your Bible. Okay, back to the presentation. So this will be the second lesson of this course. For the third lesson, we will come back to the classification task, like binary classification, and we'll see what kind of loss and optimizer you need to use in order to do classification. And again, in Pytorch, this will be done through these two modules, the torch optim and the loss function in the torch.nn module. In the fourth course, we will start to build models. Okay, in the course number 2 and 3, we will not speak about the model. We will take very simple models. So in the first one, we will see the main building block of computer vision model, which are namely convolutional layers and pooling layers. In the fifth course, we'll see another kind of layer, which are called embedding layers, which are in the sparse layers part of the Pytorch NN module. So this is another essential building block for a model. And we will go back to the first step in the machine learning pipeline. We will see how to use datasets and data loader in Pytorch, thanks to this module. In lesson 6, we will see that it's possible to do unsupervised learning with deep learning. So we'll deal with two different techniques which are rather specific to deep learning: autoencoder and generative adversarial networks. So these are very specific deep learning architectures, and it will allow us to do a recap of all the Pytorch concepts we have seen in the previous lessons. Finally, in lesson 7, the last one for this course on basics of deep learning, we'll see the last kind of layers that we didn't see so far, which are called recurrent layers. So recurrent neural networks are here to deal with sequences, taking into account the arrow of time. So this is a specific deep learning architecture, and we'll see this in the last lesson of this course. From a more practical point of view, this is how this course will be organized. Each module is made of a video like this one, some slides like those one, which I will present during the video, and then there will be one part with a Jupyter notebook. So this is code that you can run while watching the video, and then there will be some practicals that you can do at home during the different lessons. Okay. All the resources will be available on the website, and now we'll start with the first example. So remember again, I want to show you through this first example all the steps: the dataset, dataloader, the model, the loss, the optimizer, and the training. So for sure you will not be able to understand everything that everything in this. So for sure you will not be able to follow each of these steps deeply, but you will see how they connect to each other, which part of Pytorch we are using each time, and your first practicals will be to reproduce this on another dataset with another model, and to see that just by plugging these different steps together, it should work pretty well. So even though you don't understand deeply what each step is doing, this, as you understand, this will be the main purpose of the rest of the course. So at the next course, we'll go deeply in the training phase, then in the loss optimization, then in the model, and then in the dataset and dataloader. So please follow me for this first example, and let's have a look a little bit at this code. Okay, so here is the code for the first Jupyter notebook. So as you see, it's opening it in Google Colab. So why is that? Because I want to use a GPU right away. Okay, so this is in French. Perhaps I should switch. Yes, I will switch to this one, which is in English. So I will connect to the cloud. So here, nothing is really happening on my laptop. Everything is happening on the cloud, okay, on the Google Cloud. And in particular, if I'm clicking here and here, you see that I'm using Python 3, and the hardware is a GPU, which is not available on my laptop. So what we will do today is a basic binary classification task from cats and dogs. So this is a very famous Kaggle competition, and we will just use the dataset from the Kaggle competition in order to train our network. So this dataset is made of 25,000 labeled pictures of dogs and cats. So the first thing we'll need to do is to split this label data into a train and test set. Okay. So this dogs and cats dataset contains 25,000 labeled dogs and cats for the training set, and 12,500 pictures of cats and dogs for the test set. So the goal is to learn the classifier on these 25,000 labeled photos, and then we'll see the performance of our classifier on the test set. Okay. In 2013, the state-of-the-art algorithm was having an accuracy of roughly 80%. Okay, so now I'm running my Jupyter Notebook. So in order to run this, I'm just clicking on the cell. This is called a cell, and then doing Shift-Enter. So this is a typical cell where I'm importing all packages like Torch, Matplotlib, NumPy. So here, if I want to know what is the version of Torch which I'm using, remember I'm on Google Colab, I'm not on my laptop. So this is the last stable version of Pytorch. And here I will see what is the version of the Python system I have. Okay. Now here you need to check that you are using the GPU. So here it's true. So if you get a false here, you need to change the runtime over there. And here. I will cancel it here because I'm already on GPU. So the first thing you need to do is downloading the dataset. Okay. So you can do it directly from the Kaggle competition, but it turns out that Jeremy Howard from Fast AI provides a direct link to the dataset where he already made the separation between training and test and organize the folder in the right way. So we will see that in a moment. So right now you see that it did download all the dataset. Again, not on my laptop, but on the cloud. You can probably see it here. So I created this data. I will run this. In the meantime, I created this data folder. I downloaded the zip file, and now it's inflating, so decompressing this zip file over there. It's taking a little bit of time because this is quite a big data set. Okay. So now you see here on the left, here is the structure of the subfolder. So I wrote it here also. You have test1, train, valid, and sample. The sample is a small folder containing just a few samples of your dataset. So it's quite convenient to use this if you are running on CPU or if you want just to make some tests of your code. Then, as you see here, the train folder will contain two subfolders, cats and dogs. And cats, it will be a little bit long probably, contains half of the image in the train, and dogs half of the image in the train. Same thing for valid. You have cats and dogs, and now you have all the image of cats here, all the image of dogs here. In the sample, I can see it because it's much smaller. Train, same structure, cats, and you see that here you have picture of cats, dogs, here you have picture of dogs. Okay. So you see that this organization into folder where you put all images of cats and all images of dogs in one part of your subfolder will be quite convenient in order to use the Pytorch data loader. Because remember, you need to put all the images in your model, and you also need to remember if it's an image of a cat or a dog. So here, if the image is coming from the folder named cats, Pytorch will automatically know that this is a cat. If it's coming from the folder dogs, it will automatically put a label which corresponds to a dog. Okay, so the data directory is this one. And now I'm starting to do the data processing. Okay, so the first thing I will need to do is to take the raw images and to be able to pass it into my model. So I want to use a model which has been developed by others and which has been trained by researchers. If I want to use such a model, I need to make my input compatible with what they expect. So it turns out that the model I want to use expects images of this size, 224 by 200 by 24 pixel in colors. So the three here are for the red, green, and blue channel. It turns out that all my images of cats and dogs do not fit into this format. So the first thing I need to do is take the, for example, big image and reduce them to 200 by 24 by 200 by 24. If the image is too small, to the contrary, I need to expand it. And I will do very crude things here. Namely, this is all done in this what I'm called ImageNet format. So ImageNet is because I want the format the same as any algorithm trained on ImageNet. So the first thing I will do is to crop the image in order to get an image which is a square of size 200 by 24 by 200 by 24. Then I will put this into a tensor and then I will normalize. So I will come back to that in a moment. So normalization is this weird function using a transform. Okay, and now here I'm creating two datasets thanks to the Torch Vision dataset package. So if you want to see what it is, you can click here, you obtain this. Torch Vision dataset. Okay, so we will learn this later on. Back to the code. So what you pass to this dataset image folder is the path where your images are and what are the transformation you are applying to each image. Okay. So for those who are not familiar with this OS patch join, this is just here where my train dataset is. And the validation is at the same location where I'm removing train from to valid. Okay? Something useful, if you don't remember what a specific function is doing, you can ask for the help in the notebook, and you see here on the right the help appearing for the dataset image folder. Okay, so dataset image folder, a generic data loader where the images are arranged in this way, and you see that you have one folder with all the dog, one folder with all the cat. The arguments are the root directory path, so this is exactly what we did here, and the transform, which is the ImageNet format. Okay. Now let's see what the dataset is for Pytorch. So it's a class with a few attributes. So let's see what are the classes of the dataset. So cats and dogs. So how can Pytorch know that I'm dealing with a classification task with cats and dogs? It's very simple. The name of the classes correspond to the name of the folders. Okay, so here I have a folder cats, a folder dogs, so that's it. That's the name of my label. Now, for computer, I will put a 0 each time I put a label cats and a 1 for label dogs. So the label 0 is cats and label 1 is dogs. Okay. So here you see the 5 first images of my dataset. So this is where they are located. On the 0 here are the label corresponding to being a cat. So here I'm computing the size of my dataset. So on the train I have 23,000 and 2,000 for the validation set. Okay, so this is the split which was done for me in the dataset. Okay. Now I can switch off this. We can have a look at what is ImageNet format doing. Okay, so ImageNet format is actually something I defined a bit earlier, if you remember, that was here. And you see that you can ask for the help even for function you are defining yourself. And here you see what ImageNet format is doing. So cropping, putting this to tensor. The tensor are, if you want, the NumPy of Pytorch. But when you want to deal with array on the GPU. And then there is this normalization step where I'm normalizing so that with this, so that on each channel, so RGB, I have a mean given by this for the first one, this for the second one, this for the third one, and the standard deviation is given here. So why is that? It turns out that these are the statistics of the ImageNet dataset. So since we will take an algorithm which has been trained on a given dataset, you need to put as input in your algorithm data that are as close as possible to the original distribution of the dataset on which it was trained. So here it means you need to recenter and rescale your images in order to get the same statistics on your dataset that the statistics you have on ImageNet on which your algorithm has been trained. So if you want to know more, you can have a look at the Torch Vision doc. You see here all pre-trained input image normalized in the same way. Okay, RGB, that the images have been loaded around, then normalizing with this magic number that I'm using in my notebook. Okay, back to the code. Now I did define two datasets, a dataset for the train, a dataset for the validation. Now I'm doing, remember, the dataloader. So what is the dataloader doing? The dataloader is taking as input a dataset, a batch size, and this shuffle equal true. You can forget about number of workers. So again, if you want to see the doc for dataloader, it's written here. So the arguments, it combines the dataset and the sampler. So what the dataloader it will do for you, it will sample the dataset. So it will feed your network in with images. So what is the meaning of batch size? It's very simple. instead of feeding your algorithm one image by one image, you will feed your algorithm with a batch of images. And the batch will be of, in this case, 64 images. What means shuffle equals true? This means that before taking a batch of 64 images, you will shuffle your dataset in order to get a batch with roughly a fraction of 50% of cats and 50% of dogs. Okay, so that you will be sure that in each batch you have example of both classes, so that your algorithm will be able to learn. These are the two main quantity of a data loader. Okay, so this is the loader for the training, the loader for the validation. You see that I'm taking the training dataset here, the validation dataset here. The batch size now is 5, okay, why not? And here I'm not shuffling anymore for the validation, because for the validation I'm just passing all my images through my network, and I just want to see if I'm making a good prediction or not. There is no learning involved, so I can pass all my images in any order I want. If I want to see all the cats first and all the dogs first, it doesn't matter. It does matter only in the training phase. Okay, so now I'm running this, and you have a little bit of time to try to understand what this is doing. So I'm iterating through my data loader for the validation set, and you see I'm counting how many passes I'm doing. Okay, so for the first pass I will output inputs try and labels try. So this is one bunch of data. So this this inputs try and labels try will correspond to the images of my first batch. Okay, and how many batch do I have? If I'm looking here, 400. So why 400? Because I'm making batch of size 5, and my validation set is of size 2000. So it's 400 batches of size 5. Okay, so let's see what the labels are. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 5, 0. Not very surprising, because I'm not shuffling. So the only thing I'm seeing here are cats, if I remember well. Yes, cats. Cats are zeros. And the inputs try shape. So if you want to see the shape of your tensor, it's a tensor, so it's a high dimensional matrix, if you want, of size 5 by 3 by 200 by 24, 200 by 24. So okay, this 200 by 24 by 200 by 24, it's clear. This is the size of my square matrix. This 3 corresponds to the 3-channel RGB, and this 5 is always in the first position. The 5 is the batch size. So this means this input try contains 5 color images of size 224 by 200 by 24. Okay, so let's see what an image looks like for a computer. So a bunch of numbers like this. So you see that you have negative number. It's perfectly correct, because once you pass your images through the ImageNet transform, you are normalizing everything to be Gaussian, okay, with a given mean and variance. So it might very well, you might very well end up with negative numbers. So now are some small function just to display images. So here I'm displaying the first 5 batch in my validation set, so 5 cats. So there are several things to say. Here you see that this is, here you see very well a cat, and indeed you see a black box around the cat. And this is because the original image was too small, and when you did the center crop, what the center crop did is it did padding, what we call padding. So it added black black pixel around the image. To the contrary, for example, here and here, you see that the original image was too big, and the crop at the center of the image didn't even take the face of the cat, for example. So you see that, for example, here it's quite hard to predict whether it's a cat or a dog, just based on this. But nevertheless, we'll try to see what performance we can achieve with such a naive preprocessing of the data. So here I'm looking at a batch of size 8 in my training loader. So now you see that I'm shuffling. So I have dogs, cats, cats, dog, cats, dogs, cats, dogs. So on 8 of them with the right label on the top. Okay, so now we did the dataset on the dataloader. Now we need to build a model. So we not build the model yourself. We use one which already exists. It's called the VGG model. Okay, so let's see what is this VGG model. Okay, so let's do this. So VGG model is an architecture which has been trained on ImageNet. So ImageNet is again this huge dataset of images with 1000 categories. So the task is to do a classification on this. And ImageNet is one of the first deep learning architecture working on this dataset. So you see that here what I did is I downloaded the architecture of the model directly from Pytorch with pretrain equal true, meaning that I'm also downloading the architecture as well as all the parameters inside the architecture which has been given to me by the researcher who did the training on the huge ImageNet. Okay. So if you want to know what prediction your VGG model is doing, as I told you, there are 1000 different categories. So here I'm just downloading a JSON containing all these categories. I'm putting it in the data, and you see that, for example, the 4 first categories in ImageNet are tench, goldfish, great white shark, and tiger shark. So you see that you have animals, but it's not like fish against the opposite. You have subcategories inside animals. Okay. So let's see what will be the prediction of the VGG model on the small batch of size 5 of inputs. So remember, this is the batch taken from the validation set. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm putting everything onto the device, so on the GPU. So once again, nothing is happening on my laptop. Everything is happening on the Google Cloud. So this is on the GPU of Google. And now I'm just passing my inputs to get through my model as a function to see what I get. Okay? So I get a bunch of numbers like this. So what is the shape of this output? It's 5 by 1000. So why 5 by 1000? So again, 5, the first dimension is always the batch size. 1000 is just the number of categories in ImageNet. Okay? So each line here has size 1000, and you see you have positive and negative number. So if you try to get a meaning from this, it's pretty hard. One way to do that is to transform each line in a probability. So a sum of positive non-negative number summing to 1. One way to do that is by using the softmax function. So here is a Wikipedia webpage of the softmax. So this is this function. You take the exponent of all your entry and you are renormalizing by the sum to get a probability summing to 1. Okay, so this is exactly what I'm doing here. I'm checking that I have probability, it sums to 1. And now here are the prediction. So if I'm taking each time for the prediction the highest probability given by my network, this is a category with the highest probability for my 5 images here of cats. So the first one, it's classified as a hamster, then a tabby, and Persian cat. So you see it's doing a pretty good job, except the first one, which is believed to be a hamster, and in my case will be a cat. But it's doing something which is a little bit too narrow, because tabby is a kind of cat, and I don't want to use this information. I just want to be able to distinguish cats against dog. Okay. So in order to do that, I need to modify a little bit my network. So one way to see what your network looks like is first to do a print, but you see that you have a first part here containing what is called features, then you have on a bunch of layers, then you have average pooling here, and then you have a classifier. Another way, more pictorial way to see it is here, where images is inputted on the left and the output is on the right. The first part here, each time you see a conv layer, this corresponds to what is called features here. And the last fully connected layer here corresponds to the classifier. So if you remember the first part of the lesson, all this convolutional layer here, they correspond to the feature extraction. All this fully connected layer here correspond to the classifier. So the idea is pretty simple now. We will not touch at all the feature extraction part of the network, so this will remain the same. We will only change the classifier part, okay, and adapt it to our task. And in order to do that, what we'll do is something pretty simple. We'll do a minimal change. We will remove this last layer, okay? And remember that the output of my network is of size 1000, because I have 1000 categories in ImageNet. Now I only want 2 classes, if it's a cat or a dog. So I will replace this last layer, which gives me an output of size 1000, by a new layer taking the same input but outputting a vector of size 2. Okay? So this is written here actually. The last layer is this linear layer with in feature something 4096 and the out feature 1000, the number of features in ImageNet, of categories, sorry, in ImageNet. So what I'm doing here, I'm replacing this module, which is number 6, by a new linear model taking the same input size and outputting a vector of size 2. Then I'm applying a log softmax, okay, in order to get my output. Now my new classifier is given by this. I have this new linear feature where the only change is the output feature size is not anymore 1000 but it's 2, and then I'm applying a log softmax function. Okay, so remember that if you want to know what the log softmax function here is, this is just the log of this softmax function. So this is a Wikipedia web page for softmax, and this is the Pytorch web page for the log softmax. Okay, so the log of the softmax. So remember that this is interpreted as a probability, and you are taking the log of a probability. This will be important in the future. Now I'm putting my model onto the device because I didn't modify it, okay? And here what I'm saying is that all the parameters in my models are frozen. So all these parameters will never be touched in any training I will do in this notebook. Now, okay, I have my dataset, my dataloader, my model. I need in order to get to the training loop to define a loss and an optimizer. This is exactly what I'm doing here. So we'll see in the next session why we take the NNL loss, but here you have the documentation in Pytorch of what it is. So it's written here. So this is basically the sum of the log of the probability. And the optimizer I'm using is Torch from the Torch Optim module, and I'm using SGD, which means stochastic gradient descent. And you see that I'm optimizing these parameters, only the last layer, with the given learning rate. So again, if you don't know what learning rate means, we will see this in the next lesson. It's you really don't need to know right now how I choose this value. Okay. So now I define my dataset, dataloader, my model, my loss, my optimizer. Here is the training loop. Okay. And this is where the magic is coming. And for sure, I'm not asking you to understand this right now. Just the structure of this function. It's taking as input a model, a data loader, and a number of epochs, an optimizer. So now here I'm running for a number of epochs. So this means that I will start now because it's taking some time. I will go over and over my data set for example here 2 epochs. So I will see each image in my training set twice, exactly twice. And for each epoch, I'm doing another for loop here. This for loop. Oops. So in my so the data loader is an iterator. So I'm looking at all my inputs and classes. Then I'm passing my inputs through my model, computing the loss with respect to the output of the model on the true classes. Now I'm doing some magic stuff here, optimizer zero grad, loss backward, optimizer step. This corresponds exactly to the red arrow on my slide, and we will learn what this means in the next lesson. So this is basically updating the parameter of my network in order to get a better accuracy next time it sees images. And here I'm just computing the prediction and computing the loss over my epoch and the accuracy over my epoch. So running correct and running loss. And then there is a print. So you see that here I did start already, I don't know, 1 minute ago, and it's still processing. So you need to wait a little bit before obtaining just the first result corresponding to 1 pass through the dataset. Okay, so here we have the first result. So you see that the loss is given by this number and the accuracy is around 95. But be careful, here the accuracy is on the training set, so it's not the accuracy on the test set. So in order to compute the accuracy on the test set, I did this other function, test model, where I'm basically doing the same thing as here, but now just 1 pass on the test set. So there is no epochs anymore, there is no optimizer anymore, because here the model is frozen. This is in this model eval, and I'm just computing what is the accuracy of my model on the given dataset, on the test dataset. So you see that the training is still running, and I only ask for 2 epochs. I'm running on GPU. which means that if you are running this on CPU, it will take quite a bit of time. Okay. Okay, it's done for the 2 epochs, and it took roughly 4 minutes, and the accuracy is around 97. The loss is decreasing still, but be careful, this is the accuracy on the training set. Okay, now I'm running this on the test set. Oh, the accuracy is even better, so we probably did not overfit yet. So we have 98%, and remember that it's to be compared to the 80% a few years back. So here are the predictions made for this, always the same batch of 5 images of cats. Okay, and you see that this is the output. So each time it's a vector of size 2, it's a probability, so these 2 numbers are summing to 1, so this one on this one, this one on this one, and so on. And you see that each time you have a number which is very close to 1 here for the category of cats, and very close to 0 over here, especially for the 4 last one. The first one, okay, it's 0.8 and 0.1, but you see that the picture is not that clear because of the crop we already discussed. Okay, so okay, so it turns out there is an easy way to speed up what we did here. I will run this because it takes a little bit of time and explain what I'm doing right now. Okay, while it's running. So here, remember that we modify this last layer, but all the remaining layers over there are frozen, meaning that in the training loop we are not using the red arrow to update these parameters. So the parameters of this part of the algorithm is completely frozen. So each time you have an image here, you need to compute all the output through all these filters, and you are doing that as many times as you are running the number of epochs. So if passing the whole dataset through this part of the network is taking, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, this means these 3 minutes you need to compute it for the first epoch for sure, but then you should be able to reuse directly the output of the network here. So this is exactly what we will do. We will pre-compute all the features by passing once the whole dataset through this, the feature extraction part, store this as a new representation of my images, and then directly apply the last part of the network on these features. So this is what is done here. This function precomfit is exactly computing for each image in my dataset the output of the first part of the VGG model doing feature extraction. So these VGG features here. So you see that if I'm passing through this feature extraction a batch of 5 images, I'm obtaining a batch of 5 new images, but of size 7 by 7 with what is called a depth of 512. So this is written here. And it took 2 minutes actually to run just to compute these features on the whole training dataset here. Okay, so these 2 minutes, of course you need to do it once for the first epoch, but now we will gain these 2 minutes for each subsequent epoch. Okay, so here I did the same thing for the validation set. Okay, so but remember that before we use the dataset of images with dataloader, and we use the dataloader of Pytorch, taking the opportunity that we put images in different folders. Now we broke everything here because of the pre-computing of the feature. So the first thing you need to do, and this is done here by hand, by me, it's to recompute, to make a new data loader which will not take images anymore, but the features directly. Okay. So this is what I'm doing here. So you see it's very short, and you will understand it in a few lessons. And now I'm training again my network, and you see how fast it is. I will run it for 50 epochs, and one epoch is very, very short compared to the 2 or 3 minutes taken previously. So you see that actually 50 epochs is probably too big because the loss is not decreasing anymore, the accuracy is not with, well, it's still raising a little bit, so we'll see how it goes. For the optimizer. So again, be careful, here the accuracy is on the training set, not on the test set. So with deep neural net, you can achieve very good accuracy on the training set, but it generalizes poorly to the test sets. So we'll discuss that in the next lesson. So here, my accuracy is around 98%, still on the training set, and you see that it took me 2 minutes to do 50 epochs of training. And on my test set, I see that the accuracy is also of 98%, and the loss is of the same order roughly as on the train set. So I'm probably not overfitting here. The last part is just to see what kind of mistake your network is doing, what images are hard or easy to correct. So here you see I have an accuracy of 98%. Okay, so this is to show you, okay, the difference between the images taken in the network with the crop and the images, the original images. You see that sizes are very different. They are small, big. Sometimes the dog is in the center, so when you do a center crop, you will have a good feature, but sometimes it's not. Perhaps oops. So for example, this one is cropped weirdly, which corresponds to this one. Okay, so here are images which are incorrect prediction. Okay, here. So this one, which is probably a dog, was classified as a cat. Okay, you see this mistake where you have a cat and a dog on the same image, so I don't know what is the true level of this one. And here you have the images where the network is very confident it's a cat, and you see you have beautiful, well-centered images of cats where you see very well the head of the cat. And here the same thing for the dogs. And for the dogs, again, you have nice picture of dogs, well centered, and you see that each time it's the same kind of color of dogs actually. So probably the network is better at recognizing this kind of dogs than others. And that's almost it for today. I will just try to run another. Okay, incorrect one. Okay, so these are other incorrect. So this one we already see, but you see that in your dataset you have images like that. So with the central crop, there is not even the picture of the dog, probably. Or images like this one, which has nothing to do in a cats and dogs dataset. So actually looking at errors made by your network might help you to clean your dataset. So I hope the pipeline is more or less clear to you, even though it's completely okay if you do not understand exactly what each block is doing. Again, we will come back to this later in the course, but for the practicals, you will need to do a little bit of data wrangling for another dataset and do a harder classification task, again for cats and dogs with another model. Thank you, see you soon.